In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a UI kit in Figma, and then after, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to build a solution with that UI kit. And this is what we are going to end up with. Here you can see that I have two pages. I have a components page and I have a wireframe page. The components page have a lot of components in it. And this is what we're going to make in the first video. And the smart thing about components is that if I go to assets, you can see that I have a lot of local components. And if I drag out several cards from in here, from my components library, and I go back and change in my original component, then I will change the proportions on all other items in all of the prototype that I have made. Good. So let's get started, and I'm going to go over and make a completely new Figma file. So I'm clicking on new design file, and I'm going to make two pages. The first page I'm going to call component, and I give it a new name by just double clicking the text here. I'm going to make a new page, and I'm going to call that wireframe. Just like this. And I could even make another one called design. So that I would start with sketching my wireframes, for example, on paper with a Crazy 8 brainstorm. Then I would refine the components a little bit further in here. And then I would start making my design. And lastly, I would make components and then make the final design. That's how I would do it, I think. But we're going to start with components, and up here you can choose this frame icon, and once you choose that, you can see that there is a lot of options available over here. In not only desktop, but also iPhone, tablet, and even paper and social media and watch and presentation and so on and so forth. For this exercise, we are gonna take a MacBook Pro frame. Just take one that is a little bit similar to this if you don't have the same one as I have. So now we have a frame. What you can do is that you can actually also make a grid. So if you click on the layout grid, you could click on the little dots here and then say, I would like 4 columns, let's say. I want the margin to be 96, for example, and I want the gutter to be 32, like this. And now we have a grid. I can always turn off the grid by closing this little eye. If I press minus, however, I will delete the grid, but if I just click on the eye, it will just make it invisible for a while. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a header text. This is a header I'm going to write, and I'm select all text by standing inside of the text field somewhere and then pressing Command A. Command A is always the shortcut for select everything. I'm going to choose Roboto and bold and 64. So now I have a header. I'm gonna put it somewhere here. I also want to make an avatar, so I'm going to select the round ellipse and I'm going to make a round circle like this. I'm going to turn off the grid for a while. The avatar, I will make that 78 times 78. And you can see that every time I select an item, all the dimensions and the possibilities for changing it comes up on the right hand side here. Good, now I have my avatar. And then I want to rename the 2 layers. So I'm going to select this layer and call it header. And I'm selecting this and calling it avatar. Again, I double click on a layer to write in the field and then just enter to effectuate it. Now I'm going to make a subheader. This is a sub header. And again, I select all and I choose that to be Roboto bold 36, like this. And then I want to make a link, and that's going to be Roboto medium 20. This is a link. Roboto medium 20. And I didn't select all the text, so it didn't make it 20, but I did that now. I'm going to call this a link. I'm going to call this subheader. Then I'm going to make a regular body text, and that's going to be Roboto regular 18. And I'm going to make it fill a little bit so that I have more than just one line. I'm going to select all. I'm going to go down and make it regular and 18, like this. And then I can drag out the box in the corner to make it flow in several lines like this. This is body text. Now I'm going to make a button that is 260 times 78. So first I'm going to choose a rectangle and say 260 times 78, like this. And I'm also going to make some text for it. And that's going to be Roboto bold 26. Action, because it's a button. And I'm going to say Roboto bold 26. And I'm going to put it in here. And what I want to do is align these two together so that I'm sure that it's in the middle. So I'm selecting both of them. And then up here in the alignment tool, I'm going to center them both on both axes. And lastly, I'm going to select the text as well and make sure that it's centered in the middle, like this. And then I'm going to drag out the sides of the button like this to each side, so that if we stretches the design, the text will also always be centered in the middle of the button. I'm going to select these two and group them by just dragging the mouse over them and then pressing Command G. And now I have a group, and I will call that group button. So now I have a button, and you can see that I still have the different items inside of the button. I will actually make an input field also, so I will make a copy of this layer or this group by pressing Command D for duplicate, and this second one I will call input field, and I will move it to the side, and in this one I'm going to say input for the text, and I'm going to left align the input field, and I actually want to make a little margin there. The input field, the background, I want to make that a little bit more whitish, like this. And maybe I want to make the text a little bit more gray, like that. But for the button, I actually want to make the button darker. Oh. And maybe I actually want to make the text white. There, like this. The last thing I want to make is a restaurant card. So I'm going to make a background for the card, and that's going to be this dimension. So 375 times 282. So I'm just gonna make a card here and make it 375 times 282, like this. I'm going to give it a shadow, and I do that by pressing down here in effects and the plus. And what comes up first is drop shadow. So I'm going to take the drop shadow. I actually want to make a drop shadow, and I'm clicking the sun to go into the effects settings. And I'm going to give the X 10, the Y 10, and then I'm going to give the blur 30, like this. Now I have a drop shadow here. I can delete this. That was just to show you the dimensions. And I also want to make the card white. So I'm gonna remove the gray color inside and just make it white. Next up, I have to make a little header image for this card, and that's going to be this dimension, 375 times 152. So that's basically the same width, but only half of the height. So actually I can just make a copy of this. Card background, I'm going to call one of them, and then I'm going to call, which one is on top? That's the card background. And then I'm going to take this one and then say card image to that one, and make sure that it's 152 height, 152, like this. And I'm going to make it gray, like this. Now I can align these two, and to make sure they are aligned, I'm just gonna use this and this. And then I'm going to select the hero image, because I don't want that to have a, or the card image, I don't want to have that to have a shadow, so I'm just gonna delete it like this. Lastly, I want a restaurant name, a category, and a price. So I'm gonna make a restaurant name, and I'm going to make sure that I drag out this text box, because if we have a restaurant name that is longer than this box, we need to have some kind of space in here for the restaurant name, right? That is also supposed to be Roboto bold, but 24. Then we need a category that's going to be regular and 18. Regular, 18. That could be on top. And then we need a price. And I'm just gonna duplicate this and say price. All this is design stuff, so if you wanted this to be different, of course you just had to find out how do you want it to be. Regarding the text here, I want the price to be on this side, and I will give it just this tag for myself to remember that this is the price. And maybe I will drag it up so that I could put the restaurant name here, for example. Maybe I want to put the category on top of it and the price somewhere here, for example. That could of course make some design problems, because if I put text or typography on top of a background image, I could either make the text white or black, but that depends very much on the images that I have for these cards, so that might lead to some problems. But for now this is fine, because I'm just going to show you how to make components. Now we have all the components, we just need to group the card. So I select all the card items by dragging my mouse over. I could also just select them by going over here in the layers panel, but to make sure I have everything, I'm just going to drag and then press Command G, or I could also just right click and say group selection, like this. Boom. And now we have a card, a button, input field, and a lot of different other things. The next thing I want to do is I want to create components out of these things so I can use them again and again. So let's say this is my finished design. I know that I'm going to use exactly those items, and now I have to build all my pages. So I'm going to select each graphic and then press the component icon here, and thereby I'm creating a component out of it. And you can see in the layer panel while I'm doing this that it is changing the icon for the graphic. So you can see out here that the graphics are having a new look. They are getting violet, and then they have this component icon. I can select the link, make that a component. I will select the card, I forgot to give it a name, and make that a component. And now I have components, everything is components. And what's smart about this is that if I go into assets here and click on my local, like my MacBook Pro 14, you can see that I have a lot of local components that I can drag out and use again and again and again. If I want to change something, for example, let's say that I decided that I can see in my finished design that the color here is not good, it's somehow too bold or something. I can go in and I can change the background color on my main component. It needs to be the main component page here. Then I'm changing it for all the other cards as well, as I said in the beginning. So that's the smart thing about having components. And I can go over to my wireframe or my design page, and then I can start designing with my components. I can make a wireframe. I can go back to my assets, and then I can start designing something here and make it how I want it to look like. So that's how it's working with a component library.